Today on the Wyatt Sharp Show, I interview Member of Parliament for Northumberland Peterborough South, Phil Lawrence. But before we get started with our interview, make sure to subscribe to the channel as well as give this episode a big thumbs up. So let's get started with our interview. Hello, everyone, and welcome, and thanks for joining us. Phil Lawrence, welcome to another episode of the Wyatt Sharp Show. Today we have my local MP, as well as the Shadow Minister for National Revenue, Phil Lawrence, joining us. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you. Pleased to be here, and it's great to be with another Orono neighbor there. Perhaps one of the greatest towns in all of our country there.
Absolutely. So far I've been asking everyone who I'm lucky enough to get the chance to interview about why they got involved in politics. So why did you get involved and when did you get started?
I got involved actually quite young, a little bit older than I think you are, Wyatt. But how old are you, Wyatt? You're
11.
11, yeah. So probably actually not far off. I think I was around 12 or 13 when I started getting involved. And just got really interested in how government works and how freedom really works. In that we see that there were countries in the world where people had freedom to pursue their dreams, freedom to worship who they wish to worship, freedom to say what they want to say, and it was that belief and that strength of freedom. And also around that time, that was back before your time, Wyatt, when the Berlin Wall was falling, and we saw the end of the Soviet Union and the repression and the terrible restrictions and challenges that that government faced on their people. And so seeing freedom emerge during that time, during sort of my formative political years, was critical, and that inspired me to want to be involved. And I've been involved ever since now at 42 years of age, 30 years later there.
All right. So along the same lines as the first question, have you always had right-wing conservative views, or is it something that maybe your family didn't have, but you transitioned into once you started kind of developing your own beliefs?
I would say my family was sort of centrist political thinkers, not particularly right wing or left wing. My mom was actually a union leader for the supply teachers, and so had some experience, I guess, on that side. Traditionally, more of left wing, but I just sort of followed my brain and followed my heart. When you looked at, to me, it was quite clear. You saw the contrast between the free world in Canada and Australia and the United States, United Kingdom, and the prosperity and the freedom and the happiness those people enjoyed, versus when we contrast that to then the Soviet Union and the repression, the poverty, the restriction of human rights, and I continue to believe that to this day. And although sometimes those messages are demagogued by people on the left, if you actually look at the fact, it's fairly clear, and history will no doubt say that those on the conservative and right side of the spectrum were right.
Okay, great. My next one is for people who don't know what the title of Shadow Minister of National Revenue is. Would you care to explain to them what it is?
Yeah, so of course the government has to collect money in order to pay for the important services that we all depend on, like healthcare, et cetera. And so part of that is having the Canada Revenue Agency. The Canada Revenue Agency is in charge of collecting those funds. It's my job as the Shadow Cabinet Minister for National Revenue to be a constructive critic to the Canada Revenue Agency and making sure that they are treating Canadians fairly, and that they're doing everything to the best of their ability to collect those dollars in a fair and competitive and as simple way as possible.
Okay, so your leader, Aaron O'Toole, has made clear your party's position on the carbon tax under an O'Toole government. How quickly would the carbon tax be scrapped, and would it be something that all of a sudden it's not there, or would it be more of something that lowers as time goes on and then eventually just disappears?
Yeah, it's a great question, Wyatt, and we'll see that as Aaron and our leadership team pulls out and puts together our climate change program, which I think that all Canadians will be impressed by as to how that works. I can tell you that the carbon tax as it currently stands is really hurting Canadians, and then now Liberal promises to triple or even quadruple that. Then we add the clean fuel standards on behalf of that. We are going to cause cause a significant increase in the necessities of life. Things like food and fuel and heating your homes will all go up in price, and our economy, quite frankly, can't bear it right now. We are in the second wave of the pandemic. Small businesses are going out of business way too often and way too quickly. We need to focus on getting the economy back working, and to once this pandemic is over, getting our economy back open safely.
And absolutely, and as you mentioned, it could triple, quadruple up to $150 a ton, maybe if not more, which is concerning. And it's going to make life less affordable. So concerning to think about. My next one is, a lot of people keep asking why small businesses can't be open. When Marilyn Gladu came on the show, she said that she would only support lockdowns if they were fact and evidence-based lockdowns and not really a lockdown, just because that's what we did in the first wave and it kind of worked to lower the cases. Would you agree with that statement?
Yeah, well, Marilyn's an engineer and I think one of the brightest parliamentarians we have. So rarely do I disagree with Marilyn, and I think she's right on here as well. We need to be science-based, and we need to be focusing on how the lockdowns actually help. And we need governments to be open and transparent and share with us why the actions they're taking. I mean, if you contrast that on the federal level, we still don't really understand when the vaccines will hit, why the vaccines were so delayed here, getting them to the provinces. We need governments that have the highest level of transparency during these difficult times, because if we're asking Canadians why to make incredible sacrifices, the least the government can do is share us the why.
Okay. So in relation to my previous question, when small businesses suffer and they're forced to shut down, based on the fact that stores can only accommodate a very limited number of shoppers. Well, stores like Walmart, Costco, and other big box stores are allowed to be open at 50% capacity, plus big lines outside, and they're also making record profits. When is it time for the Trudeau government and the different provincial governments to finally put an end to this?
Yeah, so what you're absolutely right. Small business owners have been hurt, and they've been hurt badly. And you know why? We both live in, like I said, in Orono, and one of the most beautiful towns. And we have a bunch of great small business owners around there. And the times have been incredibly challenging. Whether we're talking about the Buttercup Hollow or Terrans or some of the other great businesses, or the Fire Hall Bistro.
Country Cafe.
Sorry.
I said the
Yeah.
Country Cafe. Yeah.
Exactly. And I actually, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but we worked with the PTA of the Orono Public School, and we had Shop Wednesday. Worked with Iva Levine, and Iva and I were able to actually contribute. And what was great is those merchants, not only were we able to shepherd some people to come shop with them locally in our town on Wednesdays, but we were also able to get them to donate even during these difficult times back to the Orono public. So what I'm saying, Wyatt, is that small business is the very heart of our economy. We need to make sure that they are not in any way disadvantaged during the lockdowns, or otherwise. They should be the businesses we're promoting first and foremost.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as I mentioned, Walmart, Costco, their profits are skyrocketing right now, and there's lots of small businesses who survived the first wave, but it's very unlikely that they will survive the second wave.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely there. Why you're absolutely right there. Why there are I've talked to probably hundreds, if not thousands, of business owners, and the challenges through the second pandemic are so much worse. There are government programs out there, but there's no real or true substitute for having your business open. That's what these folks do. The entrepreneurs have put everything that they have into these businesses. They've in many cases mortgaged their homes. And put hours and hours and hours, and really their entire lives are dedicated to these businesses, and we owe it to them to get those vaccines to the provinces so that we can open up safely our economy again.
Okay. Right now the Conservatives are really struggling in the polls, and when I say struggling, I mean they are still struggling, but it's down. They're not struggling nearly as much as they were in April, and I think it's partly due to the We Charity scandal, partly due to the Trudeau government's vaccine rollout plan. Because back in April, the Trudeau Liberals were up by almost 13 points. Now they're up by 4 points in the majority of polls. So Based on the fact that the Liberals are still leading by about 4 points, do you believe that the Conservatives can still win the next election?
Yeah, so I'll give you a line first of all from a prime minister that was prime minister before both of us were born, Wyatt. And Diefenbaker said that polls are for dogs, and so I tend to believe that. And yes, I definitely believe that Aaron O'Toole will be the next prime minister of Canada, and that the Conservative Party will get a majority government. I think Canadians are coming to the realization and are aware that the Trudeau Liberals have let us down over and over again. They were slow, Wyatt, to close the borders. They were slow to approve rapid testing. They still haven't approved, for the most part, at-home testing. They have been behind on the vaccines. We're well behind. We have half as many vaccines per capita as the United Kingdom. Israel has nearly vaccinated their entire population. We continue to struggle. Early leaders such as Taiwan and Singapore were able to successfully fend off the impacts of the virus. However, in Canada, we've been late, delayed, slow, and confused. I think Canadians will want a serious leader, a leader who can guide them into the next new normal in the post-pandemic world, where we get our economy rolling again, get small businesses successful, get unemployment under control, and make life more affordable for Canadians.
And I think that all those things you just said are top priority of most Canadians at this point. My next question is quite a long one, but one thing that the Conservative Party really struggled with in the last election was their support in the province of Quebec. They only won 10 out of the 78 available seats. What steps can be taken to grow their base in Quebec? Which party do you believe will be their biggest challenger? And then from a personal standpoint, I do feel that Aaron O'Toole is going after Quebec a bit better than Andrew Scheer did. Not really in terms of the campaign, because he hasn't really started the campaign yet, but in terms of, he appointed several members of his leadership team from Quebec, several shadow ministers from Quebec. What are your responses to those?
Yeah, so first of all, I would agree with you. I think Aaron's been very strong in Quebec. It starts with his French. He's excellent in French. By the way, just for the viewers that are local, I've been taking French now for over a year. Mon français, ce n'est pas formidable, mais je suis essayé très fort. I'm working very hard to improve my French. So that I can help communicate with our francophones in our own riding and across the country. And it goes back actually to the leadership, Wyatt. If you look at the leadership results, the reason why Aaron O'Toole is our leader right now is because of his unprecedented support in Quebec. When you boil it down, though, Quebecers have similar wants and desires as the rest of Canadians. They want to have their lives back, and how we get that back is by having Canadians vaccinate. Everyone who wants a vaccine get a vaccine. The best way to do that is to have an Aaron O'Toole government. And then post pandemic, we need to have an economy that supports and celebrates success, and doesn't demonize our achievers, that promotes small business, that promotes our farmers, our agriculture, that allows Canadian small business owners and really business owners and employees all across this great land of ours to enable to have a prosperity and be able to give back to the community and be able to support their family. And I think Quebecers will realize that the way that they achieve that is by electing an Aaron O'Toole majority government.
So yeah, the province of Quebec is actually, I would say, a pretty conservative province. The problem why Conservatives can't win a lot of seats there in past elections, I would say, and I don't know if you would agree with me, but it's likely due to the Bloc, right? They won 38 seats there, I believe, in the last election, as opposed to when Stephen Harper won a Conservative government. He did well in Quebec, and that was because the Bloc Québécois only won, I believe it was 3 seats in that election cycle. So, I mean, again, Quebec's a pretty conservative province. It just, you have to go at it strong to take Conservative support away from Bloc support.
There's some truth to what you're saying there, Wyatt, and even before Harper, Brian Mulroney was very strong in Quebec, and I believe that Aaron has the ability to have that type of success in Quebec. When we look at the bloc, I think Quebecers are increasingly becoming aware that because the bloc can never form government, they just structurally cannot do it. Their ability to actually have impact on policies and legislation that will help Quebecers is almost nil. So if like the bloc can talk, they can speak in glowing rhetoric about support for Quebec, but having them as your representative is really counterproductive to helping Quebec because they can't form government. Whereas with a conservative majority government, we can actually get changes, positive changes for Quebecers done.
Okay, and sorry about this. What are your thoughts on the potentiality of a spring election?
I think it's pretty clear that the Trudeau Liberals want a spring election. I can tell you that from the Conservative side, and personally, my viewpoint is that we should get through the pandemic. There'll be plenty of times for election once we have the majority of Canadians vaccinated and we've headed towards back to a new normal. This is not the time for an election, but we just saw on social media just today posted virtual election signs were going up for the Liberal government. All the signs are there. That Trudeau has mentioned it numerous times. So there's no doubt that Prime Minister Trudeau wants an election, and so as the governing power, he will likely have the ability to do so. And so we, like I said, we do not want a spring election. I'll put that clearly on the record. And we would call upon Prime Minister Trudeau to focus on COVID-19 and not on politics.
So, Michelle Rempel Garner, rather, said that she thinks that Justin Trudeau is wanting an election because by the time spring election rather, because by the time September and October comes along, Canadians are going to realize that Justin Trudeau's vaccine rollout plan has not been successful, and so Prime Minister Trudeau wants an election in the spring because he knows that Canadians are going to realize that. Would you agree with that?
So what I would agree, and I would add on that unfortunately, and I hope for Canada's sake that I'm incorrect in this, but it looks as though the vaccine plan is well behind, and as I said, a number of the countries are literally twice or three times further per capita in their vaccinations. The other part I would add is the economic plan. Of course, Canada has spent the most amount of money during the COVID per capita of any of the G7 countries. However, we have the highest unemployment, and so we have a massive deficit and a massive debt and a slowing, continuing staggering slow economy, which will be challenged to pay off this debt going forward. So not only, of course, first and foremost is always the health of Canadians, but we also have economic concerns. And I think Trudeau is probably somewhat aware of his failures, both on the health and the economic side. So yes, that could be driving him towards an election.
Okay, and my final question today, what should the government be doing on the Canadians who are stuck in China right now?
Yeah. So, I mean, that really goes back to a bigger picture. The Chinese need to see, the Chinese government, the communist Chinese government needs to see that in Canada we have a strong, principled leader. And really that man is Aaron O'Toole. And I have full confidence that if Aaron is elected as Prime Minister, he will be able to have a significant impact on the negotiations. There are policy steps that we can take, concrete policy steps, such as the initiation of the Magnitsky sanctions and other steps that we can put pressure on it. But we should be putting maximum pressure on the Chinese Communist government, both with respect to bringing home the two Michaels, and in addition to that, also making sure we protect the free people of Hong Kong.
Okay, and sorry, one more question. Why should people vote for you in the next federal election?
That's a great question, and so thanks very much for that, Wyatt. I will continue to strive and push for policies that bring back jobs to Northumberland, Peterborough South, that allows our economy to get going. I will work with Aaron O'Toole to improve and make the vaccination plan better, so that we can open up the economy quicker. I'll continue to push and fight for rural Canadians. Rural Canadians, which is a large portion of our riding, have been left out by the Trudeau government. Things like the carbon tax disproportionately hurt people in rural areas. We'll continue to push for agriculture and for rural areas, such as my private member's bill. And finally, but perhaps most importantly, I will, regardless of whether you're a Green Party member, an NDP, or a Liberal, I will fight for Northumberland, Peterborough South, and for you, and provide you with the best constituency service in Canada. And we'll continue to do that. And you might know we actually have our Green Party candidate, Jeff Wielden, who actually works with us and our team. And so we're completely committed to taking in all opinions and all thoughts and bringing the best of them to Ottawa, and more importantly, bringing the best of Ottawa back to Northumberland, Peterborough South.
Great. Thank you very much, Phil, for joining me today.
Thanks, Wyatt. Have a great day.
You too.